You know,
We have a
you,
potent message of life and logic, and all the other side has is inertia and political
Yeah,
correctness
so
and peer
yeah.
pressure and herd
so
mentality.
Mordechai, so here's the question. What I always wonder about this, and the answer can't just be because they don't have jobs. Why are the leftists so good? They're so flippin' good. And I'm speaking as a former Soviet person at organizing masses like this. And it can't be just money, and it can't be just the people these kids on the streets have no jobs. It can't just be that. They're really good at organizing people. We suck at it so bad. I can't even describe to you how badly we suck at it.
They
Yes,
organize around
actually,
a few simple lies that make these people feel virtuous. And it's
I
why
agree.
it's so much easier to believe a lie than it is to believe the
No,
truth.
but in terms of just organizational, I mean, structure and they've
Yeah,
like there has to be
community
something in the Torah that
organization.
talks about this. How the
Well, I
Sitra Achra
mean,
is good
you
at,
know,
you know, you know?
yes, yes, we should
Mordecai, take a
conclude.
crack at it. But I believe that I can answer this absolutely, positively, perfectly. But I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, go ahead.
No. I'd like to hear somebody else.
I just hold on one second. I just got distracted with something that came in. I apologize. All right, go ahead. Wait, where are we back
No,
to?
no.
What was the question again?
The
Something flashed
question
in front of
was,
me.
Greg asked the question, why is the left, why are the commies
Ah,
so
of
good at
course.
organizing and motivating and all that kind of stuff?
Look, conservatives generally want to conserve, and they're not interested in things changing, and it's not a movement or it's not a tenua of creativity. Whereas those who are identified with revolutionaries, so their whole name of their game is to invent and to create and to change and to do things. Besides that, this is a technology of social demolition that has existed for hundreds of years. It predates the French Revolution, and the techniques that they have and that they use to manipulate masses of people are things that have been perfected, and you know these things that we're discussing, really they're subjects of articles that I wrote because it's important to understand. We should drop the link. I don't have the link right now because I know we would discuss this, but always the left generally is better at propaganda than the right, because the right is a step behind, because the right is always reacting to what the left does, and the right always wants to they always want to kind of preserve what's being destroyed by the left, and that causes the propaganda to be stale and generally boring and generally unimaginative and uncreative. And you see that most of the right wing political parties can never put up a decent slogan, a decent poster, whereas the leftists always have crisp, sharp, biting, sarcastic, good propaganda, and that's part of the name of the game, is that we have to release ourselves from the crustiness that here. What does it say? Shannon says we fell asleep and believed whatever was fed to us. That's right. And that's one reason, is because we just want to survive. We just want to get along. But we really should be revolutionaries ourselves. We have to understand it's the time of the Gula, and we have to be, again, we're the ones on the stage now. So if we would think in that kind of a mindset, that there's a world that needs to be conquered, there's a world that needs to be run, and we're the ones who are here to do it, I think we would come up with better propaganda also.
So, Greg, can I get a crack at it for a
For
moment?
sure, for sure.
It's because they're Gnostic. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means that everything, their entire worldview, shaping, the way politics should be, the way the world should be run, the way that the spirit, in their view, the way the spiritual world, the higher spiritual realities reflect what's going on in this world and what they expect to encounter in the future. It's a very, it's a very complex view, which is based on something very, very simple. It must be that I have to indulge in every one of my proclivities. It's not only should I not restrain myself, I must free myself as much as possible. If this is how they think. If I'm thinking about homosexuality, I have to go explore it to its absolute maximum, as far as I can go, regardless of, even if it gets violent. I have to explore that. If I like kids, you got to go and explore that to its absolute maximum, and so on and so on and so on. It is the ultimate acceptance of evil. It is the ultimate self-indulgence. So that is will give a person infinite energy, seemingly infinite energy, to because if they think they're creating a world where they can be that kind of person, right? They create a society that embraces that mindset. Think about all the amazing selfish experiences that they could have, right? Mm-hmm. And if you live in so it's a fantasy world that is built on creating a fantasy world. So and so that's why it's very entertaining, it's very exciting, it's very, very selfish, because that's something that a person could get behind. You understand? With no motivation whatsoever. That itself motivates them completely to.
I think we're actually saying the same thing.
Everything that they do in terms of making this kind of, and creating communism, which facilitates all this, right? Everything that they do towards that is the fulfillment of that fantasy. You understand? Like you could make communism happen by embracing these things. You understand? So it just kind of keeps getting stronger and stronger. The point is that they want to. Let me boil it down even more. That was a little bit convoluted. They're creating a kind of society which allows them to have the kind of sex that they want without any limitation.
It's always been that way.
So here's my question. Somebody mentioned revolution. You mentioned Mordechai revolution. And Frank, you're talking about they're creating a fantasy. Honestly, Frank and I just spoke about the founding fathers. These were people who actually made a revolution against those who, were like repressing them. Essentially, were trying to rule over them with a monarchy. On top of that, the very idea or the experiment called America, which was based on the Tanakh, they based it on the Tanakh, the founding of America. I mean this in a good way. It is a fantasy, and they sold, first of all, themselves the fantasy, which I mean this in a good way. Fantasy. I should use a different word. The dream, the goal, the dream, etc., etc. The vision. And the vision. Yeah, no. That's actually way better. And they even had this thing called Manifest Destiny, right? When they went out to the West. So, and the people bought into it, and somehow they had. They use the power of God, they use the power of the pen, they use their intellect, they use their knowledge, to just make a revolution. And well, in the beginning, people actually thought they were crazy, and then eventually people followed them. It took a while. It did take a while. So my question is, why have conservatives who do believe in let's say if you're in America, you believe in the Constitution or the founding fathers, or you believe in God, you believe in all these things that are you can lump them into kind of one, I guess super ideology, but we're sitting on our butts, meaning we're not excited about this anymore. It's almost like we have to have, like a husband and a wife have to renew their vows. We have to renew our vows with these grand ideas. After 200 and almost 50 years, we're talking about, me and Frank are talking about this, the 250-year mark since this happened, and people are just like, yeah, and then it got to a point where people believe that, it's just these are archaic documents. Like in America, they believe the Constitution is archaic, it's outdated. The Second Amendment has to be done away with, God forbid. Israel doesn't even have a Second Amendment, right? So
only the Jewish people have renewal built into them.
Sorry?
Only the Jewish people have built-in renewal in the form of Rosh Chodesh and our ability to renew. And all the other empires, once they start to fall, they fall. It's not going to come back to the United States.
So, Greg, let me respond quick. I'll make it quick.
Sure.
I'm very anxious about how long I take to say things, so I'm going to try to. All right.
It's all my fault. Right?
Okay.
Give you the talking to the other day. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. All right. So, hang on. I have to get out of the room because my baby's going to take a nap now. Okay. The founding fathers didn't embrace a fantasy or a dream at all. They were one of the first to embrace reality. That's the difference. The reality is the following. God's in charge of the world. God is the one who bestows rights on people. He's the one who decides who have rights and who doesn't. Every other system that's based on something other than that is a fantasy world system. It's an evil, repressive fantasy world which denies the reality. But they decided to found a society which recognizes the reality, that it's not the church, it's not the religious institution, it's not the state that gives the person, it's not the king, whatever the state is, wherever they are in the world, it's not the king or the aristocracy which give people their rights. It's God, completely independent of any human input. Okay, we're automatically born with these things. So they made God the king. Okay, America was a republic which made God the king, the ultimate authority. And so no one can challenge that. It's not, our rights are not based on a piece of paper. They're not based on the Constitution. They're based on what they would call natural law or natural reality. Okay, so they're the first people to start a republic based on those things. So they are the opposite of dreamers. They are the reality realizers.
I meant dreamers in the sense of they had a vision for how they were going to do this.
So
not
when
that they're like
fantasy,
living in fantasy world, you know?
No, but I'm saying when I said fantasy, I meant that people embrace an idea that's completely based on falsehood.
I get it.
That's what I meant originally when I said that the Gnostics they embrace their own fantasy by superimposing a fantasy over the reality. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so they did that, and it seems like we've forgotten. So now Mordechai, you're saying we're not going to remember, like Americans are not going to remember because you're saying it's just too far gone. I feel like what's happening.
Anybody looking in from the outside can see that America has lost the ability to defend themselves anymore. Meaning, the Americans, the Second Amendment was supposed to be for something, and it's not hunting and fishing and sport.
Sure.
And the Americans don't seem to understand what there have been so many Second Amendment moments in the past few years that have been squandered, and the reason is because everybody they have too much to lose. Everybody's materialism is good enough that nobody's going to make a move that is going to lose the pizza delivery by drone. It's too much to it's too much to contemplate. Only when people have lost everything, then will they go and do something that involves self-sacrifice. But Second Amendment is a nice thing to wave a flag about.
Well, Mordechai, you should know that there are
after-
70 million gun owners in America. So
We've got.
And